Good morning, everyone. It's Friday. It's our favorite day of the week for multiple reasons. One of them being Finance Friday. Today, we're excited to pick a topic not directly related to investments or insurance or all the other fun stuff we've been talking about, but something that a lot of us struggle with during our careers, etc., and that's negotiating. Negotiating gives us the awkward feels. It does feel like an uncomfortable discussion. The thought of it makes a lot of us cringe. In fact, this is a challenge for a lot of women who work, and today what we wanted to do is kind of elaborate on a few actionable tips we can all start doing as early as, well, starting today. But before we dive into that, why negotiate, right? Like why is this so important? So one of the main, well, obviously we want to live life on our terms, and like I've said in a post, the one way to do it is to ensure we get what we deserve, right? So that's just that obvious. But on a more kind of logical note as well, where if we don't negotiate, it sort of sets us at a different scale or a different benchmark that has effects throughout the course of our lives, right? So if you settle for, let's say, a salary that is lower than what you deserve or what the market rates are, etc., then you're setting yourself at a lower benchmark compared to a lot of peers, especially your male peers, and this will have repercussions for the rest of your life. We also know that women suffer from what is called the gender wage gap, and this essentially is the fact that women with the same qualifications for the same type of job do get paid on average between 20 to 25% lesser than men, and not asking for what we deserve does have something to do with it. So these are reasons why we should negotiate, and bottom line is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And so let's get started. Also, stay tuned until the end of this chat. We do have a surprise giveaway that I'll cover in the last minute or so of this Facebook Live. And lastly, if you have questions, please do add them as comments. I'll try my best to answer it during the video. If not, I'll follow it up right after the video. Great, so let's dive in. All right, so we're going to go over 5 tips today. And like I said, they're things you can start thinking about, start actioning as quickly as right after this chat. So let's go. So number 1, right? This is sort of setting your own mind towards a negotiation discussion. So what that means is, tell yourself there is always room to negotiate, right? Like that's the first step. If you get an offer letter from a new company, that is not the final offer. In fact, look at that as a start. Unless you hear the word final, it's not final, right? And so just tell yourself there is always room to negotiate. That's number 1. Simple enough, right? Number 2, which I think is the most important part of a negotiation, is do your homework, right? Like I can't stress on how important this is. If you think of a negotiation as, I know this is a bit gruesome, but as a battle, you need to have your ammunition. And your ammunition is primarily going to be your data, the research you've done, and everything you know about what it takes to deliver or to do a good negotiation. And so what is this data, right? So one example is obviously, let's say you're negotiating for a raise. You need to know what it is the market is paying you, right? It's as simple as that. It's not as effective if you go in saying, hey, I'm looking for a 20% hike. Why, right? Why do you need that? Hey, because that's what the market is paying and that's what I deserve, right? And not only data that's pertaining to you, also do research on what the other party cares about, right? And so it's important to know them well as know what you deserve well also. And a few other things to think about before going into a negotiation in terms of just numbers and data is your what is the lowest you'd be willing to go for, right? Just have this number in your head Let's say, take it as a quick example, you're at a 6 lakh per annum salary. You think you deserve around 8. Would you settle for a 7.5? Will you settle for a 7? That's just something you need to decide for yourself, because at the time of decision making, this data point comes in super handy. And to just have these numbers, have them at the back of your hand, do your research, because that's the ammunition you will have in this sort of a discussion. So that was number 2. Number 3, now this is not directly related to negotiation, but it has a deep impact on the outcome of a negotiation, and that is you should boast. Right? As women, we find this a little uncomfortable because we've probably been taught to be modest and humble and all those things, which are great virtues. But you know what? Your work is not going to speak for itself. While we all think, yes, we'll work really hard, people will see what we're doing, and I'll get that promotion or I'll get that raise. Nope, not happening. Men brag about their accomplishments all the time. We don't have to be arrogant about it. We can do it tastefully and nicely and do those humble brags every once in a while. Talk about your accomplishments. Take credit where credit is due. List out your accomplishments. Maintain a sheet of all the things you've achieved for that company, all the strengths you have, everything that you've contributed, and these again become very, very good ammunition in that discussion as well. Number 4, take your time, right? A negotiation does not need to wrap up in a few minutes or even in a single meeting. It's okay to go have a discussion, say that, okay, I need to digest this, I need to go back and ask my mentor, or I need to discuss this with my family, whatever it is. There is no compulsion whatsoever on having to wrap it up in that one meeting or that one discussion. So take your time. In fact, you should have it over the course of at least a couple of discussions, etc. So you have time to digest any new information, to understand again what your your threshold is, and how that new data may affect you. So you can table a discussion, come back to it, if you're not comfortable making a decision at that very moment. And speaking of taking your time, also be willing to walk away. This is, I would say, the most critical part, apart from the data, of course, in a negotiation. If you're not willing to walk away, the other party knows that, right? They know, let's say, again, you're negotiating for, let's say you have a new offer from a company that you've been really dreaming of, it's your dream job, and then you look at the numbers and it's just like, okay, I think I'm worth like way more than this, right? But the thing is, if you go in negotiating, giving that new employer a feel that, okay, this person, she's going to stay or she's going to accept our offer no matter what, that's not going to be as powerful. So be okay to walk away from something if you're not okay with the outcome. And lastly, this is also a bit counterintuitive. When I first learned about it, I was like, wait a minute, isn't the point of a negotiation to win, right? Isn't it that battle that we need to win with all our data, all that other fun stuff? Actually, the answer is no, right? In this battle, both parties need to win or need to feel like they've won. Why? Because the worst feeling possible is knowing that you settled for something suboptimal or something that you didn't feel was right for you, and it goes for both sides, right? An employer who feels like, let's say they've overpaid you because you did amazing in that negotiation discussion and they absolutely wanted to keep you there. It may be okay for that short term, but in the long term, it may lead to some resentment. It may lead to, just double thinking and, all this kinds of stuff, which you want to avoid. So you need to aim for a win-win situation. Leave a little bit on the table, right? So let's say you do think you deserve that 8 lakhs per annum salary. Be okay with be okay with a 7.7 or a 7.8 or a 7.5 if you think that's going to strengthen the relationship between you and that employer, right? Because life is a long-term game. It is a long game, and you don't want, for some petty thing that you couldn't agree on to sort of start ruining the foundation of a relationship, etc. And typically when you're negotiating, it is with a person you'd probably be having a long-term relationship with. So don't go into this saying, I need to win and they need to lose. Go into it saying, we both need to win. Let us try to figure out how we get to that agreement. So these are 5 very quick tips that I wanted to talk about today. Of course, there's a few things more related to negotiation. I didn't go into super technical things. Negotiation is an art, but it's also a science, right? So I'd love to do, a couple of more sessions on this if required. And before we wrap, we did promise a surprise giveaway. So here's the giveaway, right? Practice makes perfect, including with the negotiation discussion. So what we're going to do is, if you add 20 of your women friends to our group, to Life on My Terms, we'll be picking 5 of you at random, and we'll actually do a mock negotiation discussion with you. So you tell us what it is you are negotiating for. It could be a salary, it could be with a new offer, it could be a raise, it could be that promotion or a title, whatever it is. We'll spend time, we'll simulate a discussion. The thing with negotiations is that the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And if you don't have real life scenarios to give you that practice, we'll do it with you. So invite 20 friends. Once they join, you will qualify for this, and then we'll pick 5 at random and do a mock negotiation. So looking forward to that. And yeah, if you have questions, I'm just going to quickly check if there are questions on the group. Okay, we don't have any questions, but feel free to follow up, comments, drop me a note. Happy to answer questions. I've tried a lot of these tips out in different scenarios, and they do work, right? A lot of it is internal, but quite a bit of it is sort of understanding your, the other party, having that empathy, that high emotional intelligence, all these skills that women naturally have anyway. So let's start putting it to good use. Great, so we're done. Thanks for listening and watching, and we'll be in touch. Thanks.